because often humanitarian service providers, I mean, it's overwhelming the things they have to do. And so including expertise and technical competence on sexual and reproductive health is important. As I mentioned, we look at this within a continuum. It's not just the acute phase in red, which we say the minimum initial service package. We also are looking at development, preparedness, as we were saying now, the new term is health emergency risk management. The post-acute phase where we're going into recovery, rehabilitation, reconstruction, and development. Prior to joining WHO, some of the work that I did was in Afghanistan following the fall of the Taliban. And I was specifically brought in to work with the Ministry of Health on revising their guidelines in family planning. And it was really an exciting thing because, you can imagine under the Taliban rule, there was nothing. And so to be able to bring something into a health system in an organized, formal way was a tremendous opportunity. And it's very important to think of the opportunities along these ways because it's not just that acute phase that we're looking at. In fact, what you can do in the acute phases is limited. And as you can see on the bottom, we really want to ensure that we're very inclusive and that we're including ministries of health, the implementing partners, and various working groups and stakeholders. And this includes communities. I've mentioned disaster risk reduction, and this is, I think, a wonderful quote from the UN. And basically it says, if we're prepared, living with risk doesn't have to be disaster. There's no such thing as a natural disaster. They're just natural hazards. And so, again, we're really working on mainstreaming sexual and reproductive health into these national policies, programs, and larger organizational efforts to prepare for emergencies globally. It can be in the United States as well. Going to the innovations and technologies, this is, I think, really, in many ways, my passion. It's really seeing that what the really exciting developments that are happening for sexual and reproductive health are also applied in the humanitarian context. In some ways, this is where they're needed the most. We are going to, in a few weeks, be hosting the first ever technical and policy workshop at WHO in our department on this issue. And we have funding from Genuity Health Projects, who fund a lot of the research and technical work that leads to actually leads to WHO recommendations on sexual and reproductive health. But we're actually now, again, focusing on the humanitarian context. So Genuity is funding us, WHO, to host this workshop, and we're partnering with the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, because we feel that in whatever we do, while we have the technical expertise, we have to partner with the implementing agency who's going to be applying and using these technologies. So for this work, IFRC is our partner, but we are inviting, I think now it's up to, the list is up to 50, and Genuity is telling me just in an email a few days ago, we have to stop. But we have many humanitarian implementing agencies, other UN agencies, a number of development organizations who happen to be working in the humanitarian context will be there. And the goals are to improve access to innovative, effective reproductive health interventions in humanitarian settings, to bring together the service delivery organizations, the donors will be there, and experts to have a real dialogue, to share and discuss what are the evidence-based reproductive health technologies, because there's a lot out there, but we have to really look at it very rigorously and make sure that what we're implementing in the humanitarian context is very sound, and it's not really doing the bench type of research in emergencies. We want to foster consensus on how to really implement and identify ongoing future research priorities. What's in the pipeline coming up? How can we get the level of evidence that is necessary to then use that in the humanitarian context? And the other focus of our research now in our department is implementation research, or implementation science, in that we know what interventions are needed to reduce maternal mortality the leading causes: postpartum hemorrhage, hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. We know what to do. There are WHO guidelines on this. What we're challenged by is how to actually apply these in the real world. And especially, again, in the humanitarian context, which is a little different. So we are really focusing on now, and a lot of my work is focused on the implementation research, what we used to call operations research, evaluation, assessment of programs. And not necessarily, I mean, I don't do randomized trials. I do implementation programmatic research. I'd like to just highlight one technology which we're very excited about, and I'm crediting, these slides were provided by Sue Ellen Miller, who is a researcher at the University of California, San Francisco. And I actually have first met her in 2005 at an international meeting, and we talked about this non-pneumatic anti-shock garment, which she was just starting to research at that time. She'd started the research on it in 2003 as a method of managing obstetric hemorrhage, and really particularly postpartum hemorrhage, which is the leading cause of maternal death globally. We estimate it leads 34% of maternal deaths are due to postpartum hemorrhage. Again, these numbers are really estimates. It's hard to know exactly. But at any rate, at that point, we talked in 2005 about, wouldn't this be a great thing for emergencies and crises, where you have curfews? I mean, if a woman is in a camp setting and you have a curfew and you can't get out. I mean, I've been in Darfur where you cannot move. I mean, especially if there's a security incident, you may be stuck for 24 hours or longer.